Good morning and welcome into another edition of Bearcat Brunch, brought to you as always by our wonderful sponsor, Royal Links Golf Tours. Have you always wanted to play St. Andrews? Do you dream of playing golf at famed Ballybunion? Royal Links Golf Tours is a golf tour specialist offering unforgettable golf experiences to Scotland, England, Ireland, and Wales. Their custom itineraries are more than golf trips. They are immersive cultural and country experiences that will surprise and delight you both on and off the course. Royal Links Golf Tours is owned by former Bearcat quarterback Hayden Moore and his partner, UC alum Jeff Bartholomew. So if you'd like to play St. Andrews or enjoy that perfect pint of Guinness in Ireland, visit their website at royallinksgolftours.com or call them at 770-331-1525. And with that, we are back with another winning episode after I don't know if I'm going to call it fun, interesting, frustrating, exciting 27-25 win Friday night, nip at night, over the East Carolina Pirates. Joined as always by my co-host Jeff. Good morning, Jeff. Good morning, we got some early risers today.
Excited to talk about the game.
In the chat, before we even go live, good morning, Matt, Natalie, Alex, Steven. Welcome, as always. As we do every episode, kicking it off, your first impressions of the Bearcats and their 8th win of the season.
They're 8-2 after the game on Friday. I'm not sure I know how that's possible. It was there were brief flashes of like, okay, let's do it this way, and then it all just kind of it was like hold on for dear life, like sprint out to the lead, hold on for dear life is what that turned into, and I'm glad that we were able to hold on.
For sure. I mean, I wrote it down. You mentioned it, I think it was perpetuated from what Coach Fickle kind of said post game. Like, this is kind of what this team is. This is us, It's not going to be pretty. There's a lot of things that are frustrating, that are confounding. But at the end of the day, the goal of sport in general is just win the game and move on and try to build off of it. And it's much better to build off of a win than a loss. And while they – do I need to introduce my special guest host now?
Yeah.
Since he's already joined in. So I am solo this morning. A wonderful wife heading back from Michigan. So we have Will, the 3-year-old, sitting next to me here telling me that I'm being too loud. So hopefully that stays to a minimum. But, you're up 21-5. And you kind of feel like, okay, things aren't going great, but we're making – big plays, and let's just take it from here. And for whatever reason, this team just does not have that knockout finishing quality that probably I'd say the last two teams had, more so even the last team. And I think that a lot of that comes with experience and leadership. And I'm not saying they're lacking in leadership, but like more so the experience factor of like, we've put ourselves in this situation. Now let's fix the things that have been bothering us so far, but have still allowed us to get this late, and let's just take them out right now. Like we saw that kind of in the SMU game, in the Tulsa game, where you're kind of like, okay, one more score here and this game is toast. And they just have never been able to get that one more score to where it's, where the other team is like, we're not winning. We're not coming back from 28-5 or,
And I would even go so far as to say, like, in this game, I mean, there could have been a knockout blow in the first half when they go up 21-5 and then immediately give up a 72-yard touchdown pass that looked like, CJ Johnson just pushed people off of him as he walked down the field.
Yeah, I don't know if they were trying to strip the ball, if they were just not even trying to push him out of bounds and he wouldn't go out of bounds. I'm not exactly sure what, it was. I'm watching it, but I'm still like, okay, why is I guess I assumed he was just going to be. I guess I assumed he was just going to be tackled.
Yeah, that was kind of like the feeling that I had was he catches the ball over on the sideline and then breaks through 3 tackles of guys that are essentially, I don't know if they thought that he stepped out or if they like were going to be able to push him out of bounds, as opposed to just trying to tackle him. I don't know what the thought process there was, but it turned into, now instead of 21-5 and them having to drive the field, maybe take up some clock, possibly, get a stop or, force a field goal, you give up a huge kind of like momentum stopping touchdown pass, and your lead is now 24-12.
Right. And I think, big picture, like I'm kind of just done being frustrated with the like intricacies of it. Because like unless something very unlikely happens, like we're not going to see this like big sea change where in the last 2 games we all of a sudden start running the ball very well, or we all of a sudden start converting at a high level on 3rd down. So I'm just going to kind of take it for what it is and be like, we're 2 wins away from playing for a 3rd straight conference title. And
Right.
I don't really care how it happens. I just want it to happen.
Yeah.
So like, we'll talk about the things, but like, I'm not expecting them to really change. So I'm not going to allow it really to frustrate me to that level and let that overshadow. Like ECU is a good team. They're probably the best team. Well, I don't even know if I'd say probably. I'd say pretty, maybe by a little bit of a wide margin, the best team they've beaten this year. They've been playing very well. They had a bye week. Like they had a lot of things going for them coming into this game other than playing in Nipper, and we figured out a way to win, and we'll get into the details of it. But like, I'm kind of just not.
Well, there's not going to be like there's not going to just be this like wholesale change in philosophy to the way that Gino calls games, to the way, Ben Bryant is not suddenly going to become like super consistent and always like at his peak for the entirety of the game. He's going to do some things that frustrate you and make you upset. And, I don't obviously agree with like fans booing and chanting, "We want Prater" and that kind of thing. Like, I think that's a little bit, I don't know, silly, but there's not just going to be this, like, can't snap your fingers and suddenly everything that's been, questionable or concerning all year long is not just going to go away.
No, and I don't think like that stuff, like I don't agree with it, but like when you play like that, you open yourself up to those things.
Mm-hmm.
So like, it's not something would ever do. It's not something that I think is whatever, right, proper, whatever for the college game. But like, play better, and then you don't have to worry about that stuff.
That's also true.
And that's just not like a Ben Bryant thing. That's like a whole team thing. Like,
right,
there are expectations. If you want to say we're not meeting them while still winning, okay. But like, I look at it like win-loss, not so much as like how the sausage is made.
Right.
Because of just the nature of this being, you can call it a rebuild, a reload, whatever. I just kind of look at it as more of like a bridge year. And if you have a bridge year where you possibly go 10-2 and play for a conference championship, like it's very hard for me to look at that and not be happy for the program, happy for the players, like, stuff like that.
This team was going 4-8 in the not too distant past. So, like,
it's fine. It's 6 years ago at that point, but yeah,
I'm just saying, like,
they're not as clean as we would have maybe hoped, and certain guys are playing at a lower level or taking longer to get to where we want. But I think we're, it's good to have expectations. It's good to have high standards. I don't ever want that to go away.
No.
And it's good to have emotion, and because apathy is the worst thing of all. I mean, we saw that at the end of the Tuberville era. People weren't angry anymore. They just didn't care.
Right.
And so I'm fine with all of that stuff. Like, but then there also has to be a level of understanding that yes, you can have high expectations and you can have high demands, but you also have to know the sum of the parts to know that I can't hold this team to the same expectations that we held last year's team to.
No,
That's
the
just that's just
greatest. It's the greatest
unrealistic.
team that's ever played at the University of Cincinnati, and like, you're not just going to keep like you can eventually maybe get another team that's going to be better than that one, whatever. But like, it's not when you
No,
lose all those parts and what
this
you were.
team's just not in that world, and it's not gonna. I don't. It's not going to be in the last 2 regular season games,
Yeah,
but it's still good enough to win a lot of football games and beat a lot of teams that are trying desperately to, whether it's end a streak, whether it's to keep them from going to another conference championship game. I mean, there's a lot going on. So we'll kick it into kind of like the main aspects of the game, and I want to lead with special teams
okay.
because that I think is what decided this game. I'm surprised ECU hasn't fired their special teams coordinator yet because just Cincinnati alone has absolutely dominated them for the last several years, whether it's with blocked punts, blocked field goals, return for touchdowns. Friday night, a kickoff return for a touchdown. So you obviously have the Jaden Thompson touchdown after being down 5-0, totally changes the complexion of the game.
Yeah.
Their field goal kicker goes 1 for 2. Ours goes 2 for 2. And a huge shout out to Ryan Coe. I did not get a chance to look up the numbers, but I want to say he's made 11 out of his last 12 and now is like 16. I think he was 14 for 17 going into the other night.
Mm-hmm.
And now, so 16 for 19. Huge weapon, huge confidence, especially coming off of the lack of confidence we had last year. And then Mason Fletcher again, like I would guess he would say that he didn't have one of his better punting nights. He was still plus 4.5 yards versus their punter. We had 4 touchbacks on kickoffs. They had none. I mean, that's how you win a game. When
Well,
I'll get into the box score a little bit and call it box score loss. But that's how you win a game that under no circumstance when you kind of like pull apart the numbers, they should have won.
Yeah. He's 15 for 19 is what he is this year.
Okay.
So
I'm pretty sure those 4 we had 2 misses against Arkansas, and like those 4 misses were very, very early in the season.
he's missed 2 between 40 and 49, missed 1 between 20 and 29, and 1 between 30 and 39. But he's 1 for 1, 50 plus.
I think his last miss was SMU. I think so. I think that was the short one where we didn't get the touchdown on the review to Tyler Scott in the corner, and then we missed the field goal.
That was a 40 to 49 that he missed in the SMU game. So not terribly long, not terribly short.
So, I mean, that's how you win this game, I think.
Yeah. You want to move so let me talk about Jaden Thompson's return first, because I was on my way back from dinner and I got to hear Dan Horde call it on the radio, and my wife turned and looked at me when we were in the truck and was like, is there, like, how lucky are we here in Cincinnati? Like, there's nobody better at calling a college football game than Dan Horde.
Oh, he's awesome.
I mean, just incredible.
Very, very, Dan's a world-class announcer, world-class human.
Right.
Yeah.
But I was able to watch the replay of that and see him take the ball essentially out of Trey Tucker's hands.
Yeah, it did not start off well.
Didn't.
When you're standing still trying to figure out who's going to take the ball, that usually doesn't result in a 100-yard kickoff return.
No, that's one of those ones where you're like, no, yes, go. So, like you said, that kind of at least like flipped that momentum from a very odd safety from what it sounded like on the radio. forgive me, I did not go back to watch the
It
safety.
was we'll get into it when we get into like offensive like it's just really poor awareness. Like he just stood back there and held onto the ball and then like tried to spin out, and you're like, that's not going to happen with that amount of time that you've been back there. So yeah, we'll get into that part, but they're just like they're so volatile and inconsistent that it's even like in from half to half, and from like Keaton Mitchell in the first half had 10 carries for 34 yards and 1 carry for 24 yards. So 9 carries for 10 yards in the first half. And then before he got hurt, he had 5 carries for 80 yards in the second half.
Yeah.
It's like you do a great job bottling up their biggest weapon, and then in the second half, you do an awful job. You lose contain far too often, which has been a problem, happened against UCF, happens that Friday night. Like, it's just like this, this polar opposite things are happening from one half to the next.
But that's how it's been. Like, that's how it's been all year.
Right. That's what I mean. Like and yet,
like
I don't know.
They play a half of football, and it kind of started at the beginning of the year. It seemed like they, were getting down and then clawing their way back, and now it's like sprint out to the lead and hold on and hope you don't get run down.
Pretty much, it's pretty much what it's been. But I mean, you look at the box score, and tell me that they win this game. Time of possession: ECU 36 minutes to 23. We had a turnover. They didn't. They were 2 for 2 in the red zone with touchdowns. We were 0 for 2 with touchdowns. They had 2 sacks. We had none. They had 22 first downs. We had 13. Like, how do you win that football game?
With 2 very long touchdown passes that skew this.
Like,
I mean, 310 total yards. I mean, we were finally
150 of them on 2 plays.
Right.
100 and more than 120 of them. Sorry.
I mean, if you go look at when you go look at the play-by-play, and it doesn't look very good in the first half, outside of the number of plays they had. You get into the second half, and it's just like this punt battle back and forth with ECU touchdowns thrown in, and then one, the game-winning field goal that came with about 10 minutes to go when you're on their 3 and you can't get it in the end zone.
Yeah, I mean, and good morning to everybody else that's joined. I'm sure we'll get to a lot of your thoughts and questions when we dig in deeper. But thank you as always for coming on and recapping the game. I thought they did, like, as odd as it was, especially in the second half against the run. I thought they did a really good job. Or I don't know if I'll go as far as say really. I thought they did a pretty good job against Holton Ahlers. I mean, his 56% passing was the lowest of the season for him by 5%. He was over 2 yards per attempt lower than his season average. Outside of his 72-yard touchdown pass, the longest pass play they had was 16 yards. So they didn't let much big happen other than that.
I mean, his numbers weren't really that great either. Like he looked frustrated a lot on the sideline whenever they would cut to him. I know that you were there, so like you probably didn't get a good angle on that. But every time they cut to him, it seemed like he was very, very frustrated on the sideline. So
yeah, they ran their passing attack is so they run a ton of slants, especially to the boundary. They run a ton of crossers, especially on third down. And then they run a lot of verts where they just kind of throw it up, back shoulder it, or throw it up to their bigger receivers. Like that happened on the CJ Johnson touchdown. And I thought we did a good job on the crossers. They had the one on third down that we batted down that if they complete that dude was wide open. We missed.
Way gone. Yeah.
We missed that one. But I mean, he threw the ball more, second most attempts of the season, 56%. like had been in a serious groove coming into this game, and to kind of slow that down a little bit. I thought one big move that they made was Sammy Anderson got a lot more run in the slot, and I think because it's a bad matchup for Taj Ward against CJ Johnson. He much more is fit for that like traditional slot receiver.
Slot corner, yep, or slot, yeah.
And Sammy's bigger, more athletic, and I think they needed that. And CJ Johnson still had an awesome game, but I think they needed Sammy's size and athletic ability against their top three receivers because they're all bigger guys. Like they don't have a Trey Tucker type guy. They're all 6 foot plus, 200-ish pounds type guys. So I thought that was a smart move to get him in more and to allow Sammy to use his athletic ability to help him out in that regard. And I thought Jaquan Shepard had a really good game. Matched up with Isaiah Winsett, who's second leading receiver in the conference. 5 tackles, 2 pass breakups. The DBs had 8 pass breakups as a whole. So they were, they were getting their hands on the ball, getting deflections. It wasn't like Holton Ahlers was just missing open guys. Like they were making plays because they didn't get a lot of. I mean, they got some pressure, but didn't result in any sacks. Only had 2 tackles for loss.
3 quarterback hurries. Ivan Pace had 2 of them.
Yeah, he got a big one on towards the end of the game where he lit him up right as he threw it that forced an incompletion on 3rd down.
Yeah.
But I mean, Ahlers, that 4th and 12 play, give the guy credit. He no idea how he got that ball off, to make that conversion on that 4th down.
Like he was getting hit, leaning falling all the way forward, and somehow got like just enough on it to. And those are those plays that go on for too long that it turns into backyard football of like somebody just get open and try to make a play.
Well, when you're like 29 years old, you have dad strength, so he was able to hold off the younger players.
That is true. You didn't talk about the fact that Holton Ahlers was actually a 5th-year senior during the first game in 2014 when they played.
It's very funny how we like make fun of like make jokes about that. Yet like we have 2 6th-year guys on our own team, so like everybody has that situation now. Like
absolutely,
every team has a guy that you're like, how is he still in school? Like I'm sure other teams are like, Jabari Taylor still plays for UC,
right? Well, there was a story about a guy. I don't even know what team it was, but he was like going to celebrate his 26th birthday or something this year. He's like a middle linebacker somewhere.
I'm sure he hasn't been on the team the entire time. That would be impossible. But TCU's punter's 29 years old.
Oh, that's wild. That's crazy.
But the defense they were 5 for 17 on 3rd down. So where that's been an issue, they did step up there. But Keaton Mitchell going out obviously had an effect. My thing with the targeting has always been I just don't understand the ejection part of it. I don't think unless it's so egregious that you're literally like diving with your helmet,
like arms down to the side, turn yourself into a missile.
Yeah, like torpedoing a guy. Like I just don't see the point in ejecting the player. Like the 15 yards isn't, and then ejecting him and then suspending him for like the first half of the
next game because of when it happened.
Yeah,
right.
So like if that happens on the first play of the 3rd quarter, you basically miss an entire football game because you accidentally or hit your helmet again. Like I just don't like the ejection part.
That's exactly the truth. Stop. Don't eject players for that. I didn't think watching it on TV, obviously like in real time, you know what? No, not even in real time. In real time, it didn't even look like it was the sound of the impact. I think that they felt that they had to throw the flag because his shoulder, like if you go back and watch it, his shoulder hits him in the chest, and it's just the force of the impact brings the helmets together. I mean, the helmets do hit like that's, but it was more like the side of Threat's helmet into the front of Keaton Mitchell's helmet. And if Keaton Mitchell catches the ball, like he probably separates him. His shoulder probably hits the ball. His head never gets close enough to make the impact and the sound. It's just unfortunate that Keaton Mitchell missed the pass. It went right through his arms, and Threats had already sized him up for the. That's what he's there for. He's a safety. You just gonna let a guy catch the ball and walk into the end zone?
Yeah,
Is that what we're doing? Like, we might as well just stop tackling.
I couldn't see it it was on my sideline, but there were people like in that corner blocking, so I couldn't tell.
Mm-hmm.
And then I didn't go back and whatever.
Right.
It's like just the whole rule itself. I don't like. You want to call it targeting? You don't. I don't care one way or the other. I just think it's silly to.
There needs to be
eject a guy who clearly was not trying. Like, he's diving to separate the player from the ball. He's not. It's not like he's not diving to take him out. Like, he's trying to force an incompletion.
As ECU's coaching staff, media, and fans.
We'll get into this at the end. I've never seen a sadder, more crying group than in my life. But the defense, like we said at the top, they don't seem to have this knockout ability, but the defense has stepped up at the most crucial times, and figured out a way to get it done. And you got to tip your hat and hats off to them. You just wish it was maybe a little cleaner at other moments.
Oh, absolutely. Ivan Pace obviously, numbers wise, didn't have an Ivan Pace-esque game, but in very crucial times there at the end, he gets in and gets a hit on the quarterback that causes an incompletion. You got Threats that, obviously he got ejected on that, but that was a pretty crucial moment there. Even if Keaton Mitchell stays in the game there, we lose a good safety. They lost their running back. Is what it is. But his intent there was to separate him from the ball. He obviously dropped it beforehand, but I don't know that he holds on to that pass even if he's got it in his hands when Threats hits him.
Yeah. So. Yeah. But we'll kick it over, talk about the offense. Two huge plays really is the entire story for the offense.
That's it.
A 76-yard touchdown and a 55-yard touchdown. Oh, we have a Cam Calhoun decommitted. He saw that wonderfully contested game at Kroger Field yesterday, and I can't blame him.
I think that looked like it was an obvious thing that was on the way.
He got a Michigan offer recently. I think the state school might be offering soon as well. So whatever.
I think he also when you've got a recruit that's committed and then he starts posting about the other schools that are offering him. I think especially when he's been committed for this long. It's what he's been committed since over the middle of summer.
Yeah,
some point.
Whatever. It's there's always stories that we typically don't share because we don't want to. It's not. We just keep those to ourselves about not good to air out laundry for 18-year-olds or whatever. But there could be some other things going on there. I don't know.
If you're if you find they're 18-year-old kids and if they find that somewhere else is a better fit for them, then more power to them. And I hope you have a great career unless you're playing against us and then.
Well, if you go to Kentucky, I hope you are terrible, and but that's just me personally and my hatred for Kentucky.
They lost to Vanderbilt.
They did 26 straight losses, and Vandy beats them. As a Vol fan and a Bearcat fan, it's never a sad day when that happens.
Oh.
But Ben Bryant, there's not a whole lot that needs to be said. He said it himself. He wasn't good. You're under 50%. Under 50%. You take the safety that we talked about that was just felt like very poor awareness. Um,
But that's been kind of all year. Like I think
oh,
that's like
for
a
sure.
knock that we've and I think that's fair to have. Like, you know, and I know as much as we all get, like specifically at least like Bearcat Journal folks, I feel like on Twitter get hit with the like, oh, you're just like stumping for the guy that is, the starter, and you're not, like, there's no criticism, like you don't criticize anybody. Like I think we've been pretty fair in our criticism throughout the season. Like he's not super mobile. He tends to hold on to the ball a little bit too long. He doesn't get himself out of situations to extend plays very often, and sometimes it bites him in the butt, and other times they find ways to make the times that he makes good passes that turn into touchdowns by using his very very fast wide receivers, and they still win the game. And he's not going to come out and say that he had some like Heisman worthy game out there. He flat out said he didn't play very well. A lot of people are saying he didn't play very well, but that's who he is, who we are this year as a team, and we get by with it.
Yeah, I think his pocket awareness could be better. The plays that they call ask him to stand in the pocket longer. Like he doesn't throw the ball away. That's the thing, is like you don't ever see him like see that nobody's open and try to do something and throw the ball away, because that's hard, because he stays in the pocket so much that if you threw the ball away in the pocket, you could get called for grounding or whatever. So it's not like
Right.
he's scrambling, doesn't see anybody, and then throws it away. So it's a combination of things. Like he hangs in there, which is, in my opinion, is good and bad. Like he's waiting for plays to open up, but that then results in some sacks sometimes. And then it seems like his pocket awareness at times is not great. But no, I mean, but beyond that, like he missed 2 long throws, which you're going to miss long throws. I understand that, but he also was like not accurate, not very good on some of the short stuff too. Like
no, he threw several into feet.
Threw one straight into the dirt, trying to hit Trey Tucker across, on kind of a crosser on third down.
Which I thought Trey Tucker had a lane to the outside on that if he hits him in the chest with that ball, or maybe leads him like a foot in front of him where he catches it in stride. And you're gonna have that though. Like the ones that he missed downfield. Obviously, I wasn't there. The announcers said that there was a little bit of a stiff breeze blowing that way, and they thought maybe he didn't take that into consideration when he was unleashing some of those throws, and they got carried down. But I think all year he's been throwing a little high.
I agree with Marcus on this point. Like I don't think he comes off of his maybe first or second read quick enough and gets to the check down, gets to the back out of the backfield. There was
tight
one
end over the middle.
There was one play he completed it to, I want to say Josh, but it was like he took him a while to get to it when he probably should have gotten to it quicker. There was a play against Navy where he hung in there and held on to one and threw it into Tyler Scott that I remember was incomplete, that he had, I don't remember if it was Chuck or Corey, but he had one of them open on the near sideline, like the UC sideline, could have just, dumped it off to him. Seemed like there was some room to run there, just not getting, I don't know if it's not getting through the progressions fast, because I think he gets through the progressions. Like he gets to the second and third guys often, but I think he doesn't get to the bailout throw fast enough. Like he's waiting to try to get one of those maybe 3 or 4 big receiver plays hit, versus just being like, all right, I just know it's not there. Let me get it to my safety valve. Let me get it to the running back, or let me throw it away type thing. At the same time, like they're running the ball like dog baby.
Yeah.
So it makes it harder. The whole offense is hard when you, like, everybody talks the old cliche, like you got to establish the run. Well, that the old 80s and 90s way of thinking. It's not so much of establishing the run, but if you just don't have a threat to run the ball, it makes passing the ball a lot harder. And
I mean, it's the exact opposite situation that you run into when you play like a Navy or somebody that is gonna throw the ball like 3 times and not be very successful with it, and you go out there and everybody knows that like your run is not really a huge threat, and they can take away a lot more of the the down, because and they know at this point, the book's out, that a lot of these the play calls that come from UC are these slower developing down the field routes, and he locks in on those.
Yeah,
and so they can as well.
I think the offensive line, and obviously with Jake Renfro being out, that's a major piece. Like he's a freshman All-American. Like he's one of the best centers in the country, and you're having a Kevin Gerhardt step in, and who was probably going to be your starter at left guard, who is not a center by trade. And so I get all that, but like I'm like pretty disappointed that they have not been able to get the run game going to at least a competent level where it's a complementary part to a good passing attack. And offensive line play is the hardest thing to evaluate. I don't want to come on here and make myself sound, even dumber than I already am. But like, I don't see any movement. I don't see, and they're not moving people off the ball, that's for sure.
Yeah.
But I don't see any movement in what they do. Like, I don't see there's no pulling plays. There's no counters. It's basically, I mean, and again, I could be totally wrong. If you give me the all 22, because I'm watching it as a fan that is tailgated and I'm not focusing on, each guy on the offensive line on every play. So I could be 100% wrong if I watched all 22, but like, it just seems like we are a man-on-man run team, and we're not winning those
battles.
Yep. And I liked what they did when they put the back in the eye behind the cornerback, and it seemed like they were kind of running a little bit of like stretch zone type, where you just wash everybody down and allow the back to kind of pick where he wants to go. Corey Kiner had a 19-yard run out of that formation. I think Chuck's 17-yard run, and Chuck might have got banged up. He did not play. I saw him kind of like testing some stuff out on the sideline, but then didn't pay attention to it the rest of the game. I'm not sure he played a ton in the second half. I think Ryan Montgomery was the main ball carrier in the second half.
Yeah.
So I don't know if they mentioned that on the broadcast or anybody tweeted about it. I don't look at Twitter during the game. So, but I like that. Like, that's a little bit of a variation that was successful. And they ran it like 3 or 4 times, and it was pretty successful for, on the majority. And I don't know if that is a Mike Cummings philosophy, if that is these guys can't do that. That's the thing. It's like, you can say like, oh, we should be doing this. And they can go, yeah, we tried that in spring practice, and these guys can't do that.
Right.
So, exactly. Like I can harp up here about guards not pulling and not running in any counters, and they can just go, yeah, well, you should have seen when we tried to implement that, how big of a disaster it was.
Right. Like, oh, well, why don't we just run the triple option? Like, well, we don't have the guys for that.
But
like,
at the same time, it's like you've got competent, quality offensive linemen. You have solid running backs. Like, it should not be at this level with this type of a team. That it should not be this hard. It should not be, because ECU's they're not selling out to stop the run, because then that would leave them vulnerable against the better part of our passing attack. I don't think they did anything, and I could be wrong. The coaches can say, yeah, they did this, and they haven't shown that look all year, because I don't watch ECU, so I don't know what their tendencies are.
You're not a big Pirates fan?
No, I'm not a Pirates fan. So it's just it's frustrating that you would think it should not be this difficult to throw in some wrinkles, to get some speed to the outside, to find a way to break some of these guys loose. But it's been a problem all year, and I think it's you know, it's hard to be a passing team, and we've been lucky. Whether it's been no rain game, no, it wasn't especially cold Friday night. Thank God we didn't play yesterday.
Oh,
um, but you know, it's hard to be a passing team in Ohio playing in this kind of weather. You're gonna struggle if you can't do much of anything on the ground. And we had those 2 games where they kind of seemed like they figured out some things, and then it's all, you know, it's gone right back. Navy, they couldn't run it. ECU, they couldn't run it. They play very similar styles of defense. I learned they're both their coordinators have Kennesaw State backgrounds, so they play very similar styles. But you know how they get it fixed, I'm not sure.
no. I think you've pretty much touched on everything there. That we can't even say that like they need to change their philosophy, because like we touched on at the beginning, like that's at this stage of the game for the season, like you're not going to go back in and rework your offense or rework the way that you approach the game. Maybe you remind Ben, hey, you've got some check down guys, but like, is that something that he's going to be able to implement in this late in the season to start progressing through his reads faster? I don't know that that's a viable thing to do. It's more of this like we are who we are, and we're gonna have to win with this team throughout the end of the year, and then maybe going through spring ball next year, maybe when they go through the recruiting process, they evaluate guys a little bit differently to fit a new scheme of things or a new philosophy of the way that they want to handle playing football going forward into the Big 12.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, you're game planning to win the next game. You're not changing.
No,
you're not implementing any new blocking scheme in the middle of November. You're not like
right.
You're what are we doing well? How do we build on that? How does that match up with Temple? Like this is not, we're not changing anything at this point. Now maybe you can always call different plays at different times, but it's
there's not going to be a new offensive playbook that gets brought out in the middle of November.
We know the playbook. Bearcat. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No.
I was just going to say, yes, Bearcat 12. We talked. Didn't no sacks, very few tackles for loss. ECU's passing attack limits that. I mean, they have one of the better. They're top 15 or 20 in the country in sacks allowed. They just do a lot of slants, a lot of crossing routes, and then even the stuff that they go down the field with is kind of just like a 3-step hitch and throw it up type thing. So it's not like, it's very much different than what we're doing with these long crossing routes and stuff like that take time to develop. So their longer plays are still quick throws. He's just, kind of rocking back and throwing it up to their guys.
I was just going to bring up that we did have yet another game with only 6 penalties.
Some confounding ones.
Like I didn't.
I still have no idea what happened on the 4th down, because they called it on Justin Watley and Deshaun Pace was going psychotic. So I thought maybe they just called it on the wrong guy, because Justin Watley was just standing there. It was Deshaun Pace is acting as if he got called for a penalty that he didn't commit.
So like when they call the timeout, they get in there, it's like 4th and 1, they call timeout. The TV crew obviously was like following the ECU guys to the sideline, and then the announcers are like, there's a flag on the field, like we're not sure what this is. And then they even went back to like the replay, I guess, that had like the UC team going off, and they were kind of mixed in with a couple ECU players, and there was like, it looked like maybe some like jawing back and forth. So I don't know if something was said. There was an ECU player that got like tapped, and then he like MLS soccer
Yeah,
flopped onto the ground,
CJ
but
Johnson. I guess he was like laughing, supposedly was laughing about it as he was walking back to their side.
I mean, it is
I
what
don't
it
know.
is. Like you can't give the officials the chance to call
I
something
mean,
like
they
that.
called a personal
But
foul on Lorenz Metz because he fell down on top of a guy where the ref clearly didn't see the entire thing because he definitely did not dive on him. He's 15 yards behind the play and falls on the guy, and the ref turns around and is like, "Oh, how did he end up on top of that guy? That must have been a penalty."
Keith is saying that the ref told Coach
Yeah,
Fickle they saw a head slap.
I heard that, like that Watley hit him in the head or something. I don't know.
Yeah, it was
Whatever.
obviously pretty chippy there, but
I mean, like that's the AAC refs stink.
they're
Like,
awful.
why are we surprised whether it's a good call for us or a bad call for us? Like that's one of the parts that cracks me up about all the
Like even that
ECU fans complain. It's like they're terrible.
right,
Like
like even that pass interference that they picked the flag up on. I was like, uh, that looked to be, at least to my eye, looked like we did commit pass interference there, and then they're like, nope, like
I
put
mean,
that one back on our
there was a play in the UCF Tulane game at the end of the third quarter where it's a pass that is pretty clear to me is incomplete. Like he juggles it. It's pretty clear that it's not complete. They call it complete. So the clock runs. They end the third quarter.
Yes, I know what you're talking about.
Then they review it, say that it was actually incomplete. They put 39 seconds back on the clock, play that out, and then have the third quarter end a second time.
Right. The announcers were talking about that. They're like we were waiting for them to start reviewing it, and they didn't even start reviewing it for like 2 minutes into the commercial break. So I think we're gonna have some time put back on here, and then we'll go back to the third quarter ending like commercials again.
No, I mean, yeah, it's but I don't they brought Evan in.
But they did the same thing that we've
Right.
talked about on here. They
I mean,
bring him
I
in
like
situations.
I like that they didn't automatically run the ball on the third down play, but you can kind of see like you need the game reps. That play wasn't clean. I felt like they were too close. Like Evan and Josh were too close to each other. Allowed the guy to be in the way and
to get his hand up
and get his hand up. And even on the second down run, like it didn't seem to me that even like Evan running was full burst. Like it was almost like he was kind of trying to pick and see where he wanted to go, and then just kind of ran out of space and took it towards the corner. But like I have no problem with that, but it's still like it's third and goal. It's second and third and goal. Like it's kind of like the old thing. Like to me is like if you're gonna fake punt or fake a field goal, why don't you just leave your offense on the field?
Yeah.
So it's like if you're gonna get down there, why don't you just give it to like your best players and like either throw it up to Josh, which we don't do anymore, which I don't understand. Like split him out and throw it up to him, which him and Dez did countless times, or give it to Ryan Montgomery. Like you're on the 3-yard line, second and goal, 3-yard line. Give it to Ryan Montgomery. Give it to Corey Kiner. Like those are your like. I don't see why it's a better, more effective thing to bring a guy in who has not played,
who's not played a lot all year, and then you bring him in a situation where, like, look, here's the thing, he's not going to drop back and throw a pass. It's going to be something where he's rolling out one way or the other, and they're able to key in on that. Jeff in the chat over here brings up the fact like the Wiley at fullback, like. Why don't we use that there? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like leave Ben in, put Wiley at fullback, stack somebody up behind him, hand it off, let him lead block into the end zone from there. Like you tell me you can't get 3 yards?
You have a defensive lineman that played running back in high school, Tyler Gillison. Like you can bring him in at fullback. You can bring in an extra tackle. Like we don't bring in an extra tackle. We don't bring we bring in Peyton Singletary. But I don't know. Like maybe that's old school bully ball. But bring in all your beef. Bring in some and just if you can't get 3 yards doing it that way in 3 plays, it's second down. Like in 3 plays, then I'm at a loss. But I don't think bringing Evan in that situation. I don't think that's your you might score because he's super athletic and beats a guy to the corner, but I'm not sure that's your like I said that's not your best thing to do.
But we've talked about it on here at least since probably a quarter of the way in the season. We're like, look, if you're going to use Evan, we're not against it. Like maybe use him for the entire drive, and don't bring him in when it's pretty obvious what's going to happen.
Well, if you bring him in down there, you're in a condensed space. Everybody knows bring him in at the 40-yard line on first down.
Yeah,
where you have the full playbook at your disposal, and they know you have the full playbook at your disposal. You're down there, like you said, he's not in shotgun with 3 wide receivers and gonna, pick the best route.
Because if you're gonna do that, you're gonna leave Ben Bryant in there,
right?
If you're gonna try to stretch the ball, to the sideline and either get a pitch or a little just a little short pass into the end zone, whatever, some goofy little gimmicky play, then you're going to bring Evan in, and that's what they did. And it's just, it's unfortunate the way that they've chosen to use that package or whatever.
It hasn't worked yet. I mean, it worked. I think it worked once early in the year, maybe. But again, it's some stuff that we
confounding.
Yep, confounding that we don't understand, but it's not going to change in the middle of November.
No.
So I think that kind of puts a bow on that game. Yeah, Marcus. The end of the ECU or the end of the UCF Tulane game. I didn't have as big of a problem with the pass interference call on 4th and 1. When UCF for some reason decided to have Isaiah Bowser throw it to John Rice Plumlee instead of just having Isaiah Bowser run. Didn't have as big of a problem with that as the illegal man downfield call that they called then picked up that was clearly illegal man downfield, which is something that the coaches that play against that offense harp on all the time. And it happens a lot, and they never call it. And then the one time that they do call it, they pick it up when it actually was a penalty.
That was a very strange series of events over the end of that game there.
Yeah, it was. I'll leave that to Aaron, but I was not surprised. I thought UCF would win. I was surprised at how poor it seemed Tulane was prepared for that game and how poor they were stopping the run, which they've been very good at all year.
Well, things have to fall into place for them now to get
UC,
I mean, UC now can just take care of business. I mean, we might end up going back down to the bounce house. But if we get to the AAC championship game, that's the first check mark in taking care of business for the goals of the season.
Will be interesting how Tulane bounces back. They still have to play a pretty solid, explosive SMU team. UCF has Navy in South Florida, so I would expect them to win both of those games. And then if UC wins out, you're looking at probably another a trip to Orlando for the conference championship. But I think ECU game done. We can check another one off of teams we don't ever have to play again.
And before we go whipping around the NCAA here, can we briefly touch on the ridiculous comments made about from their coaching staff about like it being a dirty play by Brian Threats that they felt like he was sent at like there's one like media member I think he is like said like he's like I don't want to say it because like Luke Fickell's got this reputation, but I think that he that they were headhunting him.
Yeah, it was very odd in the sense of like how vocal like Mike Houston and Holton Ahlers were, which I can kind of understand a little bit more. Ahlers, he's a player, he's whatever. Players say things. But like I was pretty surprised at how direct and deliberate Mike Houston was with his comment. And I just put that up against the fact of like, I know Luke Fickell would never say something like that. Because believe me, we've had plenty of calls go against us that we've probably felt were poor, or plenty of things going on during the game that we felt like, the other team is doing something, and he's never even come close to commenting in that way. And it was like, I guess part of it is, I don't know, but part of it is like, all these teams have been getting beaten by UC for 3 straight years. UC's lost 1 conference game in almost 3 years. They're leaving. They're a quote, not as good. That's all I heard all week listening to ECU stuff. This isn't last year's UC team. No kidding. But it's still pretty good. Right. And it's still good enough to be 8-2, and it's still good enough to beat you, a team that is much better this year and has played really well at times and has been building for this moment, and you still couldn't get it done. And I think the part that I laugh at the most is all of the crying and complaining about, whether it's the officials, which I just think is funny in general. Like I said earlier, we know the officials stink. Why are you surprised that they might have missed some calls that would have helped your team? And 2, the general way that UC plays. Like, everybody knows that UC plays aggressive and violent and sometimes crosses the line. Mm-hmm. It's your job to figure out how to beat it.
Yeah.
Like, it's not a secret. It can bother you, but at the same time, if your team played like that, you would not have a problem with it.
And I think we've talked about it on here because the majority of the penalties, like, yeah, they rack up penalties all over the place, and like some of them, the procedural stuff are things that you're like, oh, like I wish we wouldn't have so many false starts or delay of games coming out of timeouts, but like some of the offsides calls are not a lack of like judgment by the player as much as it's like trying to jump the snap, being aggressive. Some of the hits that happen, maybe a little bit, on the boundary or whatever, like they get flagged for that. Like, all right, well, that's just an aggressive play. It was just, a half second late or, a quarter of a second late on attack. That's just how UC is. And that's kind of why we haven't truly harped on like the number of penalties, because a lot of them are penalties of aggression. And Luke has come out and, like you said, he hasn't hid anything about that's the way that they're going to play. And he's okay with those. So if head coach is okay with it, and he's the all-time winningest head coach in UC history, I think we should probably say that's all right by us too.
I love it. It sets a tone.
Yeah.
The other team knows from the jump, this is going to be a fist fight. Like I think, like I could never imagine being a fan, and maybe it's because our team plays this way, but like I could never imagine being a fan and just being like, talking about how some of the comments, and it's I get fans are going to say dumb stuff, but like it's very weird too to see like a lot of, like you said, people that cover the team, and even like coaches, players, whatever, talking that way as well. But I imagine it just stems from a huge amount of frustration in that you can't beat this team. No matter what you think of them, no matter what we think of them, they figure out a way to win. And that has to be incredibly frustrating. And that's where you start coming up with these wild theories that they put a bounty. They were trying to take out Keaton Mitchell,
Right.
and and looking at all these clips and reviews and this penalty or this player or whatever. Like, just be better.
Yeah.
Like, just figure, be better. That's it's a loser mentality. It's a loser way of thinking. Like, when we've lost 2 games, we have never come on here and we've talked about why we lost the game, the things that we did that lost us the game, the things that the other team did that contributed to us losing the game. Jason
Exactly.
brings up a point, like the one dude picks Chuck up and slams him. That could be unnecessary roughness.
Ryan Montgomery almost had his head ripped off while they were trying to pull him back. I think it was like a 3rd and 3, or
there was another play where ECU was on offense, and after the play, the guy comes through and totally chucks Ty Van Fossen, and he just kind of looks up and looks at the ref and is like, "You're standing right there." So I don't want to hear it, man. It's such a tired act. It's such a to resort to that when look at your own team, look at your special teams. How many people, of all these things that have been said on Twitter or websites, or are any of these people talking about how their special team stinks still? And then we talk about we went 5 of 17 on 3rd down. There's plenty of things in the game that makes you lose or win a game that doesn't have to do with the refs or the other team trying to take out a player.
Right.
So it's just funny, and it's still going on today.
Oh yeah, it hasn't stopped.
So
it hasn't stopped.
I love
it. It's the same couple guys just doubling, tripling, and quadrupling down on their takes. I'm just gonna. Here's a clip. I'm just gonna let it speak for itself.
I usually don't care after the fact, especially with these games against these teams that I don't care about to begin with, and then
we're never gonna play again.
Right, but there's not gonna be a ton of Temple stuff out there for me to consume to get ready for next week. So I'm definitely going to go back and listen to whatever ECU puts, fans or podcasts or whatever put out this week, just to suck up all the complaining, and it'll be some very good laugh tracks of very little what we did wrong and very little about how we were wronged and should have won this game.
Right. I think that somebody had mentioned earlier, I guess they mentioned there were 17 points the officials took away.
Yes.
No, there weren't. It wasn't. They didn't you didn't score, and the officials were nope, those points don't count.
Right.
That didn't happen. So whatever. We don't have to go back there and play them. Hopefully, maybe that ends up being a bye game at some point.
No, I don't think we'll ever see anybody in the AAC again.
Well, that's probably better for everyone.
Yeah. But 2 more to go. Check them off. Be done with it. Move on.
Let's we're gonna start with a weird one here. In the NCAA whip around that we do. If I told you that a team had 146 total yards, 94 passing yards, 52 rushing yards, and only averaged 2.1 yards per play, how many points do you think that team scored in a game?
7.
And I told you that they won 24-10. That is wild.
Who was that?
That was Iowa over Wisconsin.
Oh, I just guessed Iowa.
I thought you knew.
I didn't even know. That was a total guess, because anything that has to do with bad offense, I'm gonna just revert to Iowa.
146 total yards, 94 passing, 52 rushing, 2.1 yards play. They scored 24 points and won 24-10 over Wisconsin.
See, that's like the difference to me between UC and I couldn't be an Iowa fan because like UC's offense is struggling, but I know that they're like actually trying. I don't think Iowa tries to be good at offense because if you tried to be good at offense in the Big Ten West, where there aren't that many good teams, you couldn't be that bad. Like if you were trying to have good scheme, good play, like you couldn't be that bad.
Like if you, I mean, you don't. It might hurt your eyes. Don't pull up the play-by-play because it's just like 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out. There was one pick six. Iowa had one pick six, so you can take 7 points away from their offense there. It's just wild, and they still win the game. They still would have won without that. So I just thought that was a wild set of statistics to look at and say that team won. Mount Union, I know we don't usually cover like Division III stuff, but Mount Union won on a crazy. They were playing Baldwin Wallace, and at the end of the game they had it was a like a Hail Mary. Got tipped up by Baldwin Wallace at about the 10-yard line and flipped downfield, and a kid from Mount Union caught it right on the goal line for a score. That was a little tidbit, little clip that was going around. We can talk about a game here that I actually got a chance to watch because I was at work all day yesterday, so watching football wasn't going to happen. The Washington-Oregon game. Did you get to watch that at all?
Yes, I did, and that was awesome. Just like no defense at all.
No, yeah, none at all. And like Penix, like before they ended up, they ended up. I don't know what Oregon was thinking, but before that, when Oregon makes the interception on like the 1-yard line, Penix could have thrown the ball away, could have done anything, and instead he tries to flip one to the goal line, like through like 9 dudes. And like Sewell tips it up in the air, and I don't know who the kid is from Oregon that caught it. They were in those obnoxiously bright yellow uniforms, and he catches it there. But then it was like 4th and 1 on their own 30.
Yeah, then they go
the
for it.
Game's tied with like I don't even know. There wasn't a lot of time left. There was I don't have it pulled up exactly how much time was left there, but it was
a minute
or so.
A lot. I think. That's the thing is like, okay, so you get that. You still have to go like 40 more yards to get in field goal range.
Right. Like
it's not like getting that wins the game or, that's the thing that always cracks me up is like, you still got to go like a long way to have a chance to win the game.
Like you're tied up, Washington had just gone down and scored to tie it up. You get the ball 4 plays. You're on 4 plays, and on 4th and 1, your running back slips in the backfield, falls down, and you essentially give them the ball in field goal range.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Like we could be dealing with stuff like that. Like that coach has got some things to answer for there.
As a Vol fan, that was a big win for me.
Well, yeah. I
need the SEC or the Pac-12 to one loss Pac-12 champ. So now we need Oregon to beat USC in the Pac-12 championship if that ends up being the case. But
Notre Dame Navy, Notre Dame ekes one out there, 35 to 32.
Notre Dame's blocked 7 punts this year. Seems like Brian Mason is working his magic.
Well, yeah, I mean, they scored all their points at the second half. Like I saw a lot of things coming from Notre Dame fans that wanted to fire Marcus Freeman already. A week after he beats number 5 Clemson, and everybody wanted to give him a lifetime contract. That is a that's one of those, I don't know. That's one of those fan bases. And like I like Notre Dame, so
For sure, for sure. I mean,
And
there's
I like Marcus Freeman, so I'm not going to call for when I don't expect anybody to want to listen to my opinion on that anyway. But Georgia Mississippi State was a game at the half. We got another really great soundbite from
Mike.
Leach.
What
From
did he
Leach
say? I know. Lad McConkey got loose in the second half and pretty much ended that game.
Well, coming off at the at the half, the girl asks Mike Leach going into the tunnel, like, what are you seeing out here? What's going on? He's like, well, you're watching the same game I am. Let's hear your analysis on what you're seeing. Then he just hustled into the locker room there. But that's Mike Leach for you. Ohio State thumped Indiana.
Hey, I do want to say though.
I think you're going to say it. Go ahead.
But at least they all love each other.
I was going to bring up the fact that kid from Ohio State who Cameron
Babb has had 4 ACL surgeries.
We've got McClellan, who's had 2, and that's a great story that he's been back and been able to do what he can do. But for a kid to have to be a 5th-year guy and essentially not have a career because he's been injured with pretty serious injuries, it's pretty cool to see, regardless of who he's playing for.
I still laugh when Nebraska played Indiana. Some Nebraska, I want to say it was a former coach, maybe, was on a radio show and called Tom Allen like the greatest cheerleader in college football history. Just with his, rah-rahing, and I guess, the LEO, the love each other thing, it's all great until you win one Big Ten game in 2 years. And I thought they had lost. I thought they were on the verge of going winless in the Big Ten again this year, and forgot that their first game of the year was a win against Illinois. So you're looking at one for the last 2 years. So I'm not sure the Indiana administration is going to be showing him as much love as he wants his players to show each other.
And then you got TCU Texas, which was, a barn burner in the first half.
4-loss ranked Texas, baby. They're back.
6, 7, 8, 9, 10 punts in the first half between the two teams, and a turnover on downs, an interception, and a missed field goal. And then
Texas' only touchdown was a defensive touchdown. You got Quinn Ewers. You got maybe the best running back in the country. You got some really good wide receivers, and you can't score an offensive point?
Hey, college football's crazy. And the zoom in on Quinn Ewers on the sideline is fantastic, just because he's rocking this like full on mullet, which is fantastic.
Yeah, it fits a 6-4 team perfectly.
Ugh. Man, a team that probably would have beaten Alabama at the beginning of the year if Quinn Ewers didn't get hurt, because he was actually playing really well in that game when he got hurt. Then you've got the Tennessee-Missouri game, which Tennessee, obviously, like we've talked about them quite a bit here this year because Dave Zavol, and also they're playing really well. But is his name Joe Milton? Is that the backup quarterback?
Yeah, he transferred from Michigan.
The pass and I know it's gotten a lot of press on Twitter. Like, he threw the ball 67 yards in the air.
He can throw it 100 yards. He just has no idea where it's going. He has the strongest, might have the strongest arm of a quarterback I've ever seen.
I mean, it was and when he threw it 67 yards, it looked like he didn't even step into it.
Oh yeah, it's ridiculous. Last year somehow he won the job and played the first game or something, and he literally, I bet I'm not kidding. If he really had to and had just seeing how far he could throw it, 80 easy.
It's wild, absolutely wild.
But yes, there's a little bit of bad blood between I think Tennessee and Missouri's coach. He likes to run his mouth, thinks he's a stand-up comic.
Oh, really?
And has said some things in the offseason, and they've beaten them 62-24 and 66-24 the last 2 years.
Well, it's not worked out well for him there at Missouri. And we already talked about Washington, Oregon. LSU struggled with Arkansas. Um, at Arkansas,
That wasn't a surprise though to me. Like coming
wasn't a
off of
surprise to Vegas either.
no, I thought that
3-point
was
line.
going under big time. The field was like iced in the morning. It was an 11 a.m. kick.
Yeah, what was the deal with like? I guess there was like snow and whatnot on the field, so the grounds crew decided like, I got a good idea. It's cold, and we need to get rid of the snow on the field. So let's spray water on it, and hope that doesn't turn into ice. So then they had to go from cleaning off a little bit of snowfall to cleaning off snowfall with a large amount of ice on the field as well, that they had to like scrape the lines. So that went over well. And it was
sorry,
a weird
potty break.
You're all right. And then it was a weird, like a it was just a weird thing that they did there, spraying water on the field to try to, it's cold enough that it turned into snow and ice, and now you've got more ice. And then who do we want to move into next? Let's see. We got, I guess we talk about Alabama Ole Miss. Got Bryce Young was 21 of 33, 209 yards, and I think was able to keep that game out of reach for Ole Miss, as he does what Bryce Young does, and was able to stretch plays out more so than Ole Miss's quarterback, who didn't get the job done. And at the end of the game, I think it was a final pass that ended up sailing on him in the end zone as he rolled out to the right, and just didn't get it put together there. Let's see. We can UCLA, Arizona. Arizona knocks off 4-6. Arizona knocks off 8-2 UCLA here. 34-28. Got their Arizona's quarterback, 22 of, I can't pronounce his name, Delora. Arizona's quarterback, 22 for 28, 315 yards, 2 touchdowns, and UCLA's running back, Charbonnet, 24 carries, 181 yards, 3 touchdowns.
That was a big upset. They were
right.
20-point favorites.
4-6 Arizona.
Jane Delore is a fun dude to watch. Like, Arizona's not great, but if you stayed up late for that one, he's a fun quarterback to watch.
Penn State beat Maryland. No surprise there. Utah over Stanford, big. I mean, Boston College, I did not realize beat NC State.
Yeah, that was.
Like I said, I didn't get to watch a lot of.
There was probably, I want to say 5 or 6 like top 25-ish upsets from all the way down to Oregon at 6 to Kentucky.
Yeah, Kentucky lost to Vanderbilt.
NC State.
And then how the mighty have fallen with Syracuse.
That's not really a surprise. Their beginning of their schedule was built on Wagner and a whole bunch of dreadfulness. So yeah, they've played some better teams now. So
and Jason is talking about, I guess there's probably a lot of like
yeah, I mean
that's gonna happen. Like, we're not gonna do it here. We touched on,
I hate it. I think it's dumb. Like, if a kid doesn't want to play for your team anymore, then like, to me it's out of sight, out of mind. Like, I don't care.
Yeah. If he wants to move on somewhere else, that's great for him. And if it's a better situation, if he feels it's a better situation, they can offer something that can't be offered here, whether it's the way that they tell him they're going to use him, whatever. Like, great, have a good career, and if you play against UC, then have a bad game. but we
Yeah,
wish
like,
that on anybody that's playing against UC to have a bad game.
I don't.
So
Yeah, like
yeah,
he was committed to West Virginia. He tried to commit to Kentucky before, and they wouldn't take his commitment. Um, so, like, yeah, it is what it is. I mean, that's like recruiting now. You just, kids are gonna decommit. They're not awful. They're not awful human beings because they've decided they don't want to play for the school that you're a fan of.
they're 17 and 18 years old, and they, like
That's the funniest part about all this
think
is
back
like,
to when you were 17 or 18 and like making decisions.
well,
And
like everybody's like, oh, we flipped this guy, yeah, and then when another kid decommits, he's like, that kid's a loser, screw him. It's like, wait a second, you can't
you can't
celebrate the
ways.
fact that you are getting a kid that's already been committed somewhere else, and then at the same time, like, degrade a kid for doing the same thing to you. Like,
right?
It's only awesome when we do it to the other team, but when they do it to us, or when that kid leaves us, then he's the problem and he's a terrible person and screw him anyway.
I don't know, like. And maybe that's why we get the reputation on like with BCJ of like being homers or whatever, because we don't, people say that we don't criticize or we don't make, everything's all like rainbows and butterflies with us, when like if you actually listen to anything that we say, it's not that way at all.
I don't think it's all, like, for me
exactly
personally, like, I don't think it's all rainbows and butterflies. Like, I'm plenty critical about things that I think are worth being critical about.
Exactly. Correct.
What a kid wants to do and where he goes to school, like, I don't really care. Like, if they want to come to UC, awesome. If they don't, I don't care.
Right. No, I mean, we're in the same boat here. I'm just going off like it seems like in the last like couple weeks of like, there's been a lot of like people, and I know that it probably, you would think winning would take care of everything, but you get the one loss there to UCF, and suddenly everybody's like, oh well, like I can't listen to what you have to say because you've never been critical at all. And it's like, if you go back and listen to anything that we've talked about, reference this, like our team or like anything else, I think we've been pretty fair in our judgment of the way things have gone. And at this point, like you said at the top of the show, like this is who we are. And I'm past trying to like work out ways that the team needs to change, and just kind of leaning into, this is what we do. And if we can make it work and continue to, they're 8-2.
Well, I like, and it's funny because the guy that covers ECU for 24/7, he's getting some of the same shit criticisms that like Chad gets of like, why don't you ask the heart? Like, stop wanting a pound of flesh for every little thing that happens that isn't 100% the way you want it. Like, it's not how it works. Like, if the offense isn't playing well enough, like, we're not going to go in there like fire and brimstone, and like the fans are on the doorstep. Like, we have to give them their pound of flesh. Or if a kid decommits, like, we don't have to crucify him because he wants to go to a different school. I mean, it's just like,
not going to happen.
Just because you have a voice on a social media doesn't mean we have to like follow through with your crazy demand or whatever. But no, we've got a basketball game in a little bit
against Eastern Kentucky, which is where I started my college career.
We play them in football next year as well.
Good old Richmond, Kentucky.
But on last week's show, we'll hit. You want to hit up the Bearcats and the pros?
Yeah,
real quick.
I'll whip through it.
Sauce had another big game against the vaunted Bills offense.
Yeah. So Sauce, I'll start there. Sauce had 7 tackles, an interception, and a pass defense. He was credited with. Kobe Bryant, 6 tackles, a pass defense. Brian Cook had 3 tackles. Josiah DeGuara, 5 receptions for 41 yards. We haven't called his name yet this year. Derek Forrest had 3 tackles. Travis Kelce, 10 receptions, 106 yards. Jason Kelsey again, no pressures, no sacks allowed. It's probably upwards of 700 or some odd number of passing downs that he's not allowed a sack. Chris Moore, 4 receptions, 43 yards, and a touchdown. Alec Pierce had a reception, 23 yards. Myjai Sanders, a tackle and a QB hurry. And Eric Wilson had 3 tackles. So those are the Bearcats around the league. Obviously, like Sauce Gardner, I saw that there was I don't know if it's like My Sports Book or one of those one of the betting sites has already paid out on Sauce Gardner as the defensive rookie of the year already. I was just talking about how My Sportsbook Net has already paid out everybody that bet on Sauce Gardner as the defensive rookie of the year, which is wild to me halfway through the season.
Oh, yeah.
And I know he got like ESPN's defensive rookie of the year for the first half of the season already, which obviously isn't like a real life award or anything. It's just like the way things are.
I mean, unless he gets hurt, like I don't see how he doesn't win. Like he's just all of a sudden going to start playing terrible. And
I mean, he's
like
he's had an unreal year, and like you go down the list of those like receivers that he's covered, and I know he doesn't cover like the top receiver all the
they're
time
in the
on
game
every
though.
play, but
I mean,
he does quite a bit, and when he's on them, he's limited everything. And then to see him and Dez back at the nip at night, nice to see them come back, and it's especially nice to see them come back when there's a pretty big basketball recruit that was on the sidelines, and you can't tell me, I know it's different sports, but you can't tell me that doesn't have some kind of success rate there, some kind of positive impact on potentially securing said basketball recruit.
Oh yeah, no doubt about it. I mean, the guys we'll see what the Colts have in store. That's an interesting story. So we'll see. Alec Pierce, their offense stinks, but but I'm sure. I was just dealing with a possible pizza on the floor situation. So it did not turn into that. He walked up next to me holding a pizza box, and I'm like, oh my God. And it was the empty box. So we survived, and we've kind of run our course. He wants some attention. So
yep, absolutely.
We talked last week. I think my word for the Bengals game was "don't suck." They certainly didn't suck.
No.
And now they have a bye, and they have some hard teams ahead of them. But they're still, if they lose that game last week, they're pretty much toast. They didn't lose. And hopefully we can get Jamar Chase back.
DJ Reader,
the defensive backfield. We'll see how that holds up when they play a team that can actually try to pass the ball, because I'm not sure they're going to see that in either of the next 2 games, which they're both on the road, but those are huge, huge games. I mean, if they can somehow steal both of those, be 7-4, sets them up to have a shot, get in. You're probably no way to win the division when you're already 0-3.
I think you want to. I mean, I think you want to get to 10 wins or probably 10 wins, and hope that lands you in a wild card. The AFC's just a gauntlet.
10 still might not even do it, depending on the Jets are playing well, the Dolphins are playing well, Patriots. I mean, the whole AFC East is playing well, and they'll beat each other up. But like, somebody's gonna come. Someone's getting a wild card out of there.
Well, the good thing is, there's tiebreakers that come into account, and I think the Bengals hold the tiebreakers over
the Jets and the Dolphins.
And the Dolphins, so like those could come up to be like some pretty big wins when the end of the season rolls around. So,
real quick, we'll get to this before we close. Tonk asks, how do we feel about going back to the bounce house for the conference championship? Obviously, we have to beat Tulane, but I feel like playing UCF twice is a bigger disadvantage for UCF in their offense. I mean, I would feel great about it, because I just make it to if you make it to the conference championship game after everything that happened, everything that left after last year, and the issues that they've had, if they're able to go 10-2 and go back to the conference championship, that would be awesome. who they play, where they play them. I'm not sure it's a super advantage or disadvantage. They did play the second half without their starting quarterback, so. But I'm sure just in the generality of like feeling the team speed, understanding the concepts and everything, playing them a second time, I'm sure you would feel more comfortable, but you still have to stop it.
Yep, and I think you touched on it perfectly there. Like John Rice Plumlee didn't play a majority of the game, and that's obviously a very different look than you get from Mikey Keene. And does that benefit UC to play John Rice Plumlee the whole game? Because I thought they were doing well against him, and then it kind of sputtered and fell apart a little bit against Mikey Keene. And I don't know. Anytime you're going into a conference championship game against another team at their place, if that's what it ends up being, barring a UCF meltdown against who they got, Navy, and then I don't know who they play the last game of the year, but
South Florida.
South Florida. So barring any kind of like meltdown against either of those teams, throwing another crazy wrench in. And here's the thing: it's like UC's got to win their next two games.
Right.
They got to go to Temple and then welcome Tulane here, and Tulane, outside of what they did against UCF, they're not a bad football team. So
No.
the Bearcats have to win out to put themselves in a spot to get in the conference championship game, and then let the chips fall where they may when that happens.
No doubt about it. So that will wrap up another winning episode of the Bearcat Brunch. We thank all of you guys again. Can't thank you enough. Coming in early in the morning on a Sunday, joining the podcast, joining the chat, giving us good questions, good conversation. Please subscribe to the Bearcat Journal YouTube page. Follow Jeff and myself. Leave comments, subscribe on iTunes, Spotify, all that stuff. And have fun at the basketball game today. Hopefully we can get another win, improve the record to 3-0. And we will see you back here again next week for another episode of the Bearcat Brunch, brought to you by Royal Links Golf Tours. Have a great Sunday, Cincinnati.